Hello. Welcome to our talk on vulnerabilities in the eSIM download protocol. It's good to see you everyone here. It's a full house. So let's first introduce ourselves. I'm Shohel Ahmed. I'm a security researcher, and my co-presenter here, Tuomas, who is, I was doing PhD under him in his team. And this research started from the work under a group of team in Aalto University, Finland. So what's our story? In 2016, GSM Association released their first version of consumer remote SIM provisioning protocol, which is actually the behind the scene when we download SIM profile nowadays from any operator that is used behind the scene to download profile. So at that point of time, I was working to implement it, and as many of us here who develop products based on a specification, going through hundreds of pages of specification, and you start to ask questions like what we are implementing, are these secure, and what are the security properties of it? So this led us to have a discussion, and it turns out that in the academic world, formal verification is a proven technique that has been used prior to many other cases to verify security properties and also to identify security weaknesses. So we decided to apply this one, and together with two of our colleagues, Moish and Aleksi Peltonen, who are both also from the Aalto University, Finland. So in this talk, we are going to share our findings. So let's check what we are going to discuss in this talk. First, we are going to talk about eSIM and the consumer remote SIM provisioning protocol to get started about what it is. Next, we are going to quickly recap on the research methodology, what we applied. And finally, and that would be the most interesting part of this presentation, what did we find? What is our learnings? And as audience here, as cybersecurity leaders, researchers, and users, why does it matter to us? So let's start first from our journey to SIM and eSIM. So the SIM card that many of us used to know is a plastic chip card that contains credentials, subscriber credentials. And with that subscriber credentials, operators identify the subscriber. So it is a really critical piece of information. Now, with the transition to eSIM, that information remains the same. The only difference here is this now becomes downloadable, remotely downloadable. Rather than you go to a physical shop to get it, now you can download it from an app in your phone. It is stored still in a secure chip, which is known as UICC, which is usually soldered inside the motherboard of the phone there. So that's a basic. From a consumer perspective, how we use eSIM, that can vary depending on approach that is applied at that point of time, point of sales. The most common approach is this activation code approach, which when you go to any shop or online, you are presented with a QR code. And when you scan that QR code, in the behind the scene what exists is a URL endpoint and a one-time code. So the profile is actually bound against this one-time code. So you scan it, it's in the flow, it's presented, and then the profile is downloaded. Then there is also a second approach, which is the default server approach. In this case, the profile is bound against ID, that is the EID. And EID, like every phone, has a UICC chip. And in that, every chip has a unique ID, EID. And the profile is bound against that, so that only that phone or that UICC chip can download the profile. This is popular technique for for phones subsidized by state operators. And also it can be used for later purpose as well. So now that we see that these are the two most popular user experience perspective, what happens behind the scene? Let's look at that one. So behind the scene, as a user, we usually go to a web shop or as a physical shop of the operator. We order a SIM profile, and operators behind, they order it to a SIM provisioning server. So that is called SMDP server. So these SMDP servers, they are usually a separate business entity than the operators. As of now, today, there are 40 SMDP service certified, GSMA certified service providers exist. And many operators or operators usually have multiple of these. They have business relations with multiple of those. So when there is an order comes from an MNO to prepare a profile for a subscriber, the profile is prepared. And as with the user trigger, the profile is then downloaded to your UICC chip. So that's in short. Going one level deeper, what happens from the security perspective, secure channel perspective, the communication between the user and MNO, this is usually protected with physical control or standard HTTPS control. Channel between MNO and the server, provisioning server, this is a mutual TLS layer control. And finally, the layer which is of interest is the profile download between the server and the phone. That is based on GSMA CI issued certificates. So the GSMA CI issues certificate in both to the phone and the server direction. And with this certificate, the channel is established. So there are two channels established. In the first layer, there is a TLS layer channel established. And within this TLS layer, a separate cryptographic channel established through which the profile is downloaded from the SMDP server to the UICC. So that's about the background of how this consumer eSIM protocol works. So let's go on what is our research methodologies. So in the beginning of the research, we started with the first question is, okay, is the eSIM download protocol secure? So this is when we started research, it divided into multiple questions. So first, we need to understand how the protocol works. What are the most critical pieces, security critical pieces of information in this protocol? What are the security goals? And how can we find the security goals of this protocol from the specification? Because this is in the specification, it is scattered in multiple places. And what are the assumptions for that security goal to hold here? So we go through this journey in this process. So let's quickly recap how we did it. So first, what we did is going through this specification, which is around 400 pages long specifications in multiple places. And then there are also sub-related specifications. So build a simplified sequence chart, including all the critical pieces of security critical pieces of information here. Second, we model it according to the sequence chart. We model it in ProVerif protocol analyzer or formal modeling tool. And here, when we did model, we model it according to what is the realistic scenario in the world. So as just as one code snippet, what we are showing here is like we are modeling multiple MNOs, multiple SMDP servers, and many UICCs or phones. So that is a realistic scenario in the world. So that type of modeling, we did it. So with this in model, now in the third step, we go to what is the capabilities we want to give to the attacker. So we model the base cases, which is the specification assumed case is all participants. Like in the earlier slides, we show that there are participants, MNO, SMDP+, UICCs, users. So all participants are honest. So that base cases we bring in. And then we also bring in other interesting compromise scenarios. So we look at like what will happen if one of the participating parties compromise. What happens if it is not a participating party, but if it's a related outsider, so such as like one SMDP servers, even if it is the user is not directly interacting, what if that party is compromised? What if one of the channels compromised? So we bring all these scenarios, and then we identify the security goals. In this process, we identify 11 security goals for the authentication and 4 secrecy goals, and check with the model checker. So with that, what we get is this big list of results. So we have come with a 600 total verification targets against 11 compromise scenarios. So the main takeaway from here is when the design assumptions hold, that is all participants are honest and only the network is at the attacker. In this case, we did not find any significant failures here. So that's an important, I think, verification outcome, and that's reassuring. But then, if we go one step down, if when we start compromising parts of the participants or the outsiders, we found failures. And the next part of the presentations, we are going to talk about those failures and these vulnerabilities. So first, we'll start with an observation. So remember that in the first few slides, we have shown that profile download from a provisioning server to the phone. So there is an outer TLS layer, and there is an inner cryptographic protocol through which actually the profile is downloaded to the chip of your phone. The inner cryptographic protocol, it is a AKA protocol, that is an authentication and key agreement protocol. So it provides full mutual authentication, key agreement, and authenticated encryption. So given that there is a full-fledged inner protocol, we asked the question, like, what is the purpose of this outer layer, TLS, here? Is it a defense-in-depth mechanism? Is it just for privacy protection of few bits here? Or is it a critical component in this specification? And then the specification is not clear about that. But our investigation finds it's both critical and a privacy layer. OK, that's so far so good. Then the next question asks is like, what if TLS fails? And why we are asking this question here? Because from implementation and development perspective, we know that this TLS certificate, in this case, which is this SMDP's address, that usually resides in the TLS gateway or in the web server. Compared to the lower two, this profile binding and OID certificates, and the keys related to that, those are stayed in FIPS certified hardware security modules. So if I'm attacker perspective, he will go after the weakest spot. So that is a possibility that attacker will go after that TLS certificate. That's the easiest target. So now, bearing that in mind, let's look at 2 of the vulnerabilities we are going to discuss in the next few slides. So the first vulnerability we are going to talk about is server OID not known. So server OID is a organizational or unique identity. It's a unique identifier that identifies a SMDP plus server or the provisioning server. And these identities is usually missing in the activation code. Remember that in the first few slides we said there are two approaches, activation code approach and default server approach. And in the activation code approach, this OID is usually missing. And then in the default server approach, there is no way to insert or input this OID. So without this OID, as a client or as a phone, when we start scanning to download the SIM card, it only has the TLS endpoint, but it does not know the actual SMDP server address to where to download it. So what can happen here? Without that, there are around 40 SMDP servers in the world, and if one of them get compromised, or it's under a control of an adversary, and attacker can compromise the TLS layer, that would result in the inner cryptographic protocol attacker can redirect to the compromised or adversary-controlled SMDP server. So when that can happen, now the adversary can issue fake SIM profiles. So that's the implication can happen here. Now let's check the second one, but this is now from a different perspective. We have seen the first one is from the device perspective. When we start download, it did not have a prior knowledge about the server identity. In this case, it can happen that the server does not know the identity of the device or the UICC which is going to download it. In the activation code approach, it is possible to get the EID, but it's an optional, and most cases it's not provided. So without that, the server has no a priori knowledge about which device is going to download this profile. And when that happens, the profile is only protected against this one-time code. And this one-time code can leak in multiple paths from the process-wise. It can leak from in the MNO process. It can leak when the user is handling it. So if that happens, what it results in is adversary can steal my SIM profile. So those are the two vulnerabilities that can happen if the adversary is able to compromise the TLS layer of the communication between SMDP server and your phone. So what we learned from, this is a learning from the protocol design perspective. One of the learnings is authentication without a priori knowledge about the identifier or the party with whom we want to authenticate. In that case, certificate, although we are doing authentication with certificate is only providing guarantee that this is a type of entity that I'm authenticating to. It's not authenticating the actual identifier, actual individual identity. An attacker can, in that case, substitute to a different one. And then the second learning here is dependence on TLS layer can lead to vulnerabilities when combined with other weaknesses, and such that what we can see. And when we design such type of protocols, so this is one of the learnings here is be specific that what is the purpose of each of this layer. And it is good to include TLS as a defense in depth mechanism, but if it's for other purpose, be certain on what is the purpose. Okay, so now that we look at this one class of vulnerabilities, our second observation, we are going to the second observation. The second observation is about difficulty in verifying user intent. So when, as a user, we go to buy a SIM card or SIM profile to a shop or eSIM shop, what is communicated between us or between a user to a MNO shop, it can vary, right? In some operators, this know your customer process is quite stringent. In some cases, there is nothing. In some countries, they require that you need to produce legal identity document to purchase a SIM card. In some countries, you can get it without anything. And now that in eSIM there are two steps there. Like one is like you have one UICC to which you are downloading phone or you downloading a SIM profile, and then there is also an intent that I want to actually download a profile. So what can happen if these things are compromised? So the first thing is if there is no reliable method of identifying user identity when someone buys a subscription, that is some kind, the attacker can perform an identity fraud. At that point of time, attacker can steal the victim's SIM profile. And this is similar to the SIM swapping attack. Now, this attack existed from the SIM world. So what's the difference with the SIM world to the eSIM world? So it's a technique. Attack technique differs here. Earlier, it used to be that you need to visit a shop to perform the attack. Now, as an adversary, you can probably perform it all from online from your home. So the attack techniques and process changes. So when the SIM swapping happens, it can lead to multiple further attacks down the line. So, and then fourth one, which we are going to talk about, this is, I think, it's one of the interesting vulnerabilities in this presentation is verifying user UICC ownership. Remember that in the beginning, I have talked about that each phone has a UICC chip, and it has an EID identifier. And usually, in many phones, this EID identifier, it's as a QR code, it is outside your phone, so that if you want to download a phone or if you want to go a shop and want to download against it, you can scan it. But it is a privacy-sensitive identifier. And in many cases, we are careless, and we post it also of public forums. So if an attacker can get hold of this identity, what can happen? So attacker can order a profile against this identifier. And when to an MNO, and when I, as a valid user, went to the MNO shop or MNO and order a profile against this device, what will happen is I will get the first one, that is the attacker ordered one, in my phone installed. So now I get attacker installed or attacker chosen SIM profile in my phone. So that can happen. And if that happens, so what? So someone else is paying my bills. That's good. That could be some potential consequences. It can happen. So one of the potential consequences could be if the subscription is maintained by the attacker, that means the attacker may have access to the call logs or billing information through the customer care portal or my location information. Then there could be a potential that if it's a multi-SIM case, adversary has one of the profile it brings to him, and one of them it gives to the victim. In this case, attacker can intercept the communication also, maybe answer the phone on behalf of the victim. So with these potential consequences, what we learn from here? So user identity checks, as always, from the SIM world to the eSIM world, this remains important. And along with that, verifying ownership of the UICC, that becomes now important. So that whenever in the MNO side or mobile operator shop they sell a subscription, verifying that when there is a profile is ordered, that device is owned by the person So that verification is important. Although these are easy to say, but it's hard to implement because of different business reasons in the operator world. So from this research, we have notified the GSMS eSIM working group about our findings and recommendations. GSMA acknowledges our finding that RSP protocol is secured between honest entities when attacks are performed by only the network adversary. For the first two category of attacks, that is related to endpoint, knowing the endpoints or not knowing the lacking a priori knowledge, GSMA emphasizes on eSIM certification process. So the eSIM certification process is a process for all SMTP servers need to go through to run it or to operate it as a service. And it's a regular auditing and compliance check process. And then for the later two categories of attack, GSMA points out these are out of the specification. So this is now an operator's duty to verify those know your customer and know your device, also like ownership of the device verification steps. So let's recap on key takeaways, what we learned from this research work. So for the protocol designers, many of us here are the researchers, formal verification is an effective tool to verify security weakness. It has been used in academic and research communities to identify weaknesses. So we encourage others here to use it. For those who like to test protocols, whether there is a vulnerability or there is a weakness, specification is a good source. Actually, like here in this room, I saw that there are also in the first there are a couple of presentations on the specification. Rather than only focusing on product, we can also focus on the specification and find weaknesses there. And finally, and I think this is one of the most profound one here, is for the telecommunication world, we need to think of telco is an open world now. It's not a closed world. One of the participating parties can get compromised. And if that happens, there should be defense in depth mechanism in place so that if one layer fails, there are other layers that can protect you, and you can still, it can still provide the security goals or security properties it can still hold. So with that information, we want to share a few of our research work. So our research is published in SCM journal. You can read more about it in details. What are the types of attacks and vulnerabilities and detailed recommendations to fix those. We are also releasing model that we use for identifying and detecting these weaknesses in the RSP protocol. This can be utilized also for other cases by modifying it. So it's could be a great tool for researchers who are looking to use it. And with this in mind, we have around 1 minute time. We can take probably 1 or 2 questions here, if there are any.
Hi. First, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I had a question on the very first attack you presented. So at one point you say that, if you can go to this slide, there are like 2 public infrastructure, let's say. There is the web PKI and the GSM certificate infrastructure.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. And then you said let's assume that TLS is broken, and then we can, I think it was the next slide when you had like the first attack, and you say that you can send a fake profile. Now, my first question is, what kind of certificate is used for TLS? So if you're referring to the Web PKI or the GSM certificates in infrastructure for the TLS part. And the second question was for the fake profile you're supposed to send. If I'm not mistaken, the profile still need to be signed using the GSM certificate infrastructure. So I think that, if you can clarify this, the SMDP server that needs to create this fake profile still need to be one of the server that is compliant with all the
yeah, so as I said, like, so this is, you're right. So here, this one of the server is under the control of an adversary. So that server then can issue fake profile in that case, although that is probably not the intended, MNO intended SMTP server, which the user intended. So that adversary, now the user is getting a profile, same profile from a non-intended server or non-intended MNO. In this case, it can happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And if there are further questions, me and my co-presenter, we are here down the line. So feel free to ask any question here.